Hey folks, it's Joe with Creekside Cabin Games, and I'm checking in to show you what I've been working on this week. It's been a little bit of a non-productive week, getting ready for Christmas. Some of my family needed some help and stuff, so I didn't get to spend all 5 days this week working. I only got about 3 days in. What I was focused on was reworking how I was managing enemies. And then I kind of got sucked into working on shaders and visual effects and HDR. So I got a little bit of each done. Let me show you what I got here. If you've seen some of the earlier videos, you know that basically you have to do a skill move to defend yourself against either a melee or projectile enemy. And previously I had built these complicated... I built off of Corgi Engine's damage on touch class, and I built some complicated classes that manage the deflection and the damage done to each different enemy or the character, depending on the state, depending on if the trick was active or not or whatever. I moved most of that logic into the character themselves on a deflection manager. Makes it easier to manage feedbacks and stuff. So right now I have it set up that all collisions are going to hurt the enemy and not hurt the player. So we'll see what happens here on a melee collision in just a minute. But first let's look at this structure here, these two lines and the circle. What I've created there is an enemy spawner. And the enemy spawn point has a trigger, a place where the enemy will spawn, and then also a place where the enemy will attack. This does not work yet, but still, this is just a neat little gadget I set up here. Whenever the player crosses one of these light orange lines, an enemy that you've configured here in the prefab will spawn at this point, and that's just going to make it easier to add enemies. I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do with this in just a minute, but let's check out the melee visual effects we have, because I added some HDR to killing a melee enemy. I used the shader graphs with Unity, so it was a big time learning experience. Well, we'll bring the game over here and make it bigger. So we saw that cool yellow effect. We'll talk about this dragon in just a second here. I have big plans. Alright, let's make this a flying enemy, because the flying enemy's effects are even cooler. I might have trouble, you know what, I didn't create a prefab yet, so bear with me, this shouldn't take too long. I'm just going to create a prefab of the shooter enemy. Yeah, I don't like that one anymore. I think that is a backup. Yeah, that's a backup. So I'm going to bring in this new kind of flying enemy. And then configure the enemy spawn to use that. You're going to see this live. I'm not sure what's going to happen here. If I build it correctly, it should work though. So that shooter's going to spawn here and hopefully attack my player, and I will defend myself. Let me get the big screen over here in just a second. Okay, here we go. There's the shooter. Yeah, he missed me because I had to restart level. I'm not sure if that was on here last week. He missed me because it predicts your location. I think I slowed down, so I'm not going to touch the controller. So we got that cool laser beam, the cool dissolve effect, and the kind of like a, well, I'll let you decide what that sounds like. But it was just a, so that's a really cool HDR effect there that I added in. So I had to change the default render to the universal render pipeline for Unity, which was something new for me. I had to build with shader pipelines, or upside shader graphs, build new materials, all very confusing until I understood it. The last thing is this dragon here. What I think I'm going to work on next is the idea that enemies are going to queue up as you travel through the stage, and then once you hit a certain attack points, they're going to start attacking you. That way you have an idea of what's coming. And I figured as you queue up, so you'll hit these start points, right? The enemy will spawn and then fly to the dragon. And if we'll go back to the game here. The dragon's going to try to keep himself in frame. And I'm going to have to improve this a little bit, but it works good enough for now. As you can see, when I go faster, he kind of falls, he gets towards me. So he's lerping according to the camera speed. One thing that definitely doesn't work is when I fall off here. That's kind of another story. I just implemented this dragon. So yeah, that's what I've been working on this week. Next week I'm going to build out the system I was talking about where the enemies will queue up at the dragon and then attack. And then hopefully I'll have some cool stuff to show. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.